2010 Mazda 3. I'm currently using this as a rental car because Big Blue got put into the shop when a girl hit her. This is a rental model, so granted this is a base model. I'm pretty sure Mazda has higher trim levels available. Anyway, you can see from the front they did put some race-inspired designs to it. I think the canards are pretty nice trick on there. I'm not sure if they're functional or not. It doesn't really look like they're functional, but you do have some canards here to help with some downforce, and they did put the front splitter right there. So whether or not that's all functional or not remains to be seen, but you can definitely tell that's kind of where they're coming at from the factory, and it looks better than a lot of the aftermarket body kits you can put on it anyway. Anyway, let me just do a quick walk around real quick. Like I said, I'm sure you can get a better model than this if you actually bought it, but this is just a rental model, so I'm assuming these are the baseline wheels, baseline paint, probably the same, probably the lowest interior you can get. So, I'm sure if you're going to buy your own, it'll work better. Anyway, there's your key, pretty standard flare now. Everybody's copying the Europeans. You unlock it, and then we'll get in. Okay, interior is kind of dark, so we'll see how this works out. First thing that you see is the two gauges in front of you, the speedometer and the tachometer. Now, for some reason, and I guess I just kind of missed this, but there's a revolution in design going on where you don't even have the clutter, you don't even have the cluster in front of you. They are making it to where the speedometer and the tachometer are pretty much two separate deals, which I can kind of see why that would be. It's retro inspired, but back then it made sense because every single gauge was its own separate deal, and you can change them out separately if you had a malfunction. It just really leads me to kind of wonder what you're going to do if one of these ever break, because it all basically ties into the computer. And my experience has been so far, if a gauge breaks, then you have to change out the cluster anyway. So that's kind of interesting. Also, I really don't like it because it really clutters it up. When you take up a lot of real estate, putting these little baubles on here like that, you cut down on the room. And I'd really like to have more than just a speedometer and a tachometer in front of me, especially if it's a sport-oriented car, which I'm assuming this is. Like where's your oil pressure gauge? Where is your voltometer? Where's your temperature gauge at? Not really stuff you just want to have operating in the unknown, and you not know until you have issues until a little light comes on. But anyway, other than that though, it does look okay. So I'll just kind of digress on that. Now, you look at the interior, and the interior is pretty much the same black and gray all over, which I think black is going to get old really quick. It'll fade into sun. You have cloth seats. Then you look in the back. There's your back seat right there. That's all there is to it. So let me go ahead and fire it up. Take the key, put it in. And I thought this was a pretty cool touch. It was a little annoying at first, but I like it, how when you fire it up, it makes this little chime at you, and the car actually says hello to you, and it says goodbye, which is a little gimmicky psychological trick, but it really does work, because I had a phone one time, and I did the same thing, so it's kind of cool to think that the car's a little bit alive. Anyway, you fire it up, and another thing that's really nice about this is that whenever you make any adjustments on the dial, you'll get a little blue strip that lights up right there. So it kind of like imitates that the car has a pulse. So between it telling you hello and goodbye and then doing the little pulsing feature, it's just a neat little trick. Now, looks aside, this car is the big reason why I wanted to make this video is I just wanted to kind of talk about the car itself. I had the chance to drive it down Houston, and it is a very rough ride. Now, I can kind of see where they're coming from, because I'm assuming that the Mazda 3 campaign is a zoom, so they make these nice little hatchbacks that have a little bit more power in them than you would normally assume, and they make them a little bit handling oriented. Well, it's very aggressively shot. It has a very aggressive suspension system. More so to the fact that you really have to wonder if this is the car you want to have every day as you drive, because it is a very harsh ride. And I don't know if it's just this particular example that I have, or I don't know what it is, but if this is the baseline model suspension, then damn, I'd really hate to see, what you have as you go up. 60 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, you're all right. But it just seems like when you go faster than that, when you get up to about 80 or 90, it's a really, really rough ride. And to a point where if I had some coffee, like right there, it'd probably be all over the dashboard, all over the console and everything, from it it was just wild how rough the ride was. I mean, you can't really explain it. It's like driving around in a dropped Camaro, which is, people put the lowering springs on there and just basically throw the shock valving all to hell, and it feels like everything you hit is just, just atrocious pothole. So I'm really interested to see what happens if people get a hold of this car and then start putting lowering springs on it and everything, and then it's really going to be wild. Anyway, but that's it. Now you got this little Triptronic shifter right here, Triptronic or whatever Mazda calls it, and you can just do this deal, and then you can flip it over like that, and then you downshift like that, and then you can upshift like that. So I don't know if you can really see this or not. Then you flip it over back, and then you're back in drive mode. Well, you're not winning any drag races with this car. It's got a very anemic motor. It's really hard to describe, but you basically go 0 to 60, and you're already on your way well into third gear by the time you hit 60. And I'm just really surprised, because I've never driven a car that you had to basically upshift 3 times. Granted, most of your sports cars that they do come out, they're usually geared up to where you will be right at the top of second gear or going into third gear when you hit 60. But at this case, it's like you hit first gear, second gear, and then you're like into a third a little bit by the time you hit 60. So drag racing is definitely not this car's forte. It's just really hard to describe. I know a lot of these imports, they tend to have this gearing trick. Well, they put really low gearing in them so you can get up to speed really quick. But this car just kind of tends to just take its sweet time, which surprisingly enough, once you do get up to speed, she holds 80 and 90 very well. You can use your little SMG shifter or your Triptronic. I know I'm calling it by a bunch of different names, and it'll let you basically hold a rev. Like, what I mean by that is that you can basically do 80 miles an hour in third gear, racking it up to 6,000 RPMs, and the car's not going to kick you up a gear automatically. People will kind of complain that it does take its time upshifting, which I tend to agree, but I don't think the automatic shifter was really designed with drag racing in mind. I think it was more of a deal where they wanted it to, where they wanted you to be able to hold a gear. Another thing about this car, kind of unrelated, but I had the local Honda Racer guy drive by next to me, and the car does get a lot of looks. People do look at it, so, if you're into the import crowd, I think people are paying attention to these cars. But, as a driver, it's a very harsh ride. As a racer, yeah, I guess it does good with the suspension if you're planning on using it to drive around cones and autocross or mountain roads or whatever. But, I don't think you really want to be doing that in a new car anyway. So that's just my short review, short drive. Hopefully this video wasn't too long-winded, even though I think it was, and maybe I'll hopefully get some videos up of me driving it. Alright, later.